Similar to those lines, the World Bank, it's been suggested by the Meltzer Commission, kind of shift its focus away from the lending business and maybe more towards supporting grants and technical assistance programs in developing countries. Do you think that that might be a more viable option for the future of the bank?
Well, I mean, you can shift to grants, and in fact, they have shifted to grants under pressure from the US, which was in part reflecting Meltzer's arguments, right? Meltzer's commission, I think, reported in 2000, 2001, something like that. And the shift to grants sort of began a couple of years ago, I think, so maybe a year ago. So, I think that reflected the successful playing through of Meltzer's arguments to some extent. When Paul O'Neill, the first Treasury Secretary in the Bush administration, came in, he was coming in, he came from Pittsburgh, Meltzer comes from Pittsburgh. I think they kind of knew, those arguments were definitely in the bloodstream of the early George Bush Treasury, and that's why we now have an institution that is making grants to some extent. Again, I have some trouble with this because it means if you make grants that you're not going to be paid back by definition. And this means the reflows that you used to get from countries that were gradually paying back without interest and very slowly on a very extended, but nonetheless the money was coming back, and that meant you could make more, larger volume of new credits out the door on the other side. And that gave the World Bank more leverage over developing countries because, if you come to the table and say, okay, we've got a grant of, 50 million, they're quite interested. But if you say, we've got a credit of 100 million, which you don't have to pay back for 40 years, and this means that we can be the complete financiers of this $100 million project that you've got to do primary education for everybody or something. Just having that larger bulk of money you can put on the table now gets you more attention from the developing country. And because I think that the World Bank, for all its faults, is better than USAID, it's better than the British DFID, which is the British equivalent, or the German equivalent, because basically all these flag-carrying national development agencies tend to be smaller, therefore less expert, also less good at sort of getting away from its national interests of its government. They're more directly influenced by national politics. I think the World Bank, over a long period, has basically been technically better and less political than all these government aid groups. And so if you shrink the new money that the World Bank can put on the table because you've shifted it to grants, you're going to decrease the relative weight of the World Bank in dialoguing with that developing country, increase the relative weight of USAID and these other groups, which I think are less good. There'll be less coordination because all these national groups, by definition, they're not coordinated with each other, whereas the World Bank, in a way, is a way for the rich world to put its eggs in one basket and have more coordination in the way the money is given. So I think you'll have deteriorating aid quality overall if you have that. So I'm not a great fan of this shift to grants instead of loans, which is a bit unfashionable, but there you are.